Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, don't have a video. Feel quite bummed about that. When I saw it, I was like, that's a great video. Totally need one of those. Do not have one of those. Also realized that John said, I'm not going to punt my book that's going to come out in 2 months. I'm completely intending on punting my book that comes out in 2 months. However, the stars did align in something John said and something I said. When he turned around and said, I'm crapping myself, I was like, dude, yes, I am cocking myself for this right now. But it feels great, and I'm really, really happy to be with you. So thank you so much for allowing me to share some of your attention today and for coming out and braving disease and death to be here with me. And for those of you at home, why would you be online watching a live stream at this time of the night? But thank you nonetheless. I really, really appreciate that. So thanks very much. But this talk, like the great books and movies, is a bit of a three-act affair today. In Act 1, what I want to do is share with you an experience that I had, a crisis that I was going through, that I think that some of you will resonate with today. Then what I want to do in Act 2, I want to share with you the weapon that I used to overcome this crisis, but also other wars with willpower that I'd been in the years following. And finally, in Act 3, I'm going to challenge you. Each and every one of you, I'm going to challenge you to pick up that weapon and to use it in a quest of your own. So, I can't guarantee you, and I cannot promise, yes, safety first, good mask use. You guys, nice. You're like, this bullshit, we're not taking off. What are you people? What's wrong with you? Respect, thank you. Good, good, good. Anyway, so that aside, I cannot guarantee that this talk is going to be for everybody. But I can say that if ever you have felt completely beaten down by your own willpower, if ever you felt that you wanted to achieve something, but you failed to and you let yourself down, well, then I think that there'll be something in here for you tonight. So let's begin. I want to take you back to the day that Mark mentioned a few minutes ago. It was the 25th of May in 2017. And I'd woken up that morning getting ready to take to the stage at Suits and Sneakers 5. An event with nearly 4,000 people where I had the privilege of sharing the stage with John and with Mark and with many other amazing speakers, to an audience of nearly 4,000 people. And I woke up that morning in a friend's house in Four Ways. It was a beautiful Johannesburg winter's day. And I got up and I reached out into my bag. And I know that Mark likes you to dress smarter and to show up a little bit. I forgot. And I went to grab this shirt. And as I went and I started buttoning up my shirt and I got to that kind of one and I couldn't close it. And my first thought was, it shrunk. And then my second thought, because I realized the ampersand, the at sign of the logo, I was like, oh, that's me. Okay, that's what he did there. And I realized I'd become too fat to fit into my shirt. And I was devastated. I was mortified. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, how can I go out on stage and face this? And I was close to tears, and I phoned Jazz, my wife, and I said, love, I actually don't think I can do this. Like, I feel so humiliated. And I'd been, by the way, it wasn't like this was a real surprise. I had on the fridge the date of this sticking for weeks to remind me, like, you got to get into shape for this. You got to do it. I knew it was coming. I knew I would feel this way, but I couldn't get in control. And on this day, I phoned her and I said, love, I don't think I can do this. And she said, listen, nobody there is coming to see you because you're some fancy model, right? So you're off the hook in that regard. They're coming to see you because you have something interesting to say. And that's what you got to do. And you got to, take a cement pill, harden up, and go to work. And you know what? Just go and treat yourself to a new shirt. Find a better shirt, put it on there, and go out on stage and do what it is you do. Get to work. So that's what I did. I went over to the Superdry store in Nickelway, and I bought a shirt. And for the first time in my life, and this is a medium for reference, for the first time in my life, I went onto stage that day in a double XL shirt. A double XL shirt. I think I look older there. I know I'm grayer now, but and I got out and I delivered a talk. And that talk, if you watch any part of it now, you will see that it was a talk of emotion. But that emotion wasn't emotion that was derived from the content. It was emotion that was derived from the inner pain and struggle and humiliation I felt from getting on the stage that day in front of people like you. I was mortified. And what made me even worse was of all the talks in my life that were going to get picked up by an organization like Goalcast and viewed 20 million times, this was not the one I wanted. Right? This was like this cosmic bitch slap, like, haha. And yes, I think they thought that I was working at the top, but I felt like I was at rock bottom. Well, almost rock bottom. Because a few months later, in November that year, I was invited to speak at yet another high-profile event with, a lot of people there as well. This event was the BCX Disrupt Summit, and I was going to be sharing the stage with people like will.i.am and Malcolm Gladwell. The diet did not go well. As you can see, they said, I remember that episode of Friends where they said, the camera adds 20 pounds. There was a lot of cameras on me on that day. And I remember getting off the stage that day, and a guy called Toby Shepshak walked up to me, bless him, and he said to me, Rich, amazing talk. Dude, you got so fat. And I know that that's an unpopular thing to do nowadays because we're all supposed to be body positive and all bodies are beautiful. I'm calling bullshit on that right now because I was in pain, right? And you know what I learned from Toby Shepshak that day? That a good friend will tell you when you've lost weight, but a great friend will tell you when you've gained it, right? Because I needed somebody to tell me, because now whenever anybody came up to me the next year and said, dude, you've lost weight, it's like, you thought I was fat last time I saw you and you didn't tell me, right? But that's what it took. It took me to realize like this is a thing. And luckily, I was kind of okay. And my wife always said to me, you're beautiful to me. I think my wife has this habit of saying you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And she even said it then. And I think she means it, but I certainly didn't feel it. And the kids gave me a cute new nickname, which I kind of liked as well. That was Fat Daddy. So I was like, hey, Fat Daddy. Hey, it's Fat Daddy. And so life was good. And in the end, after that, we took some time. We went away on a family holiday. And we went off to Glasgow, Scotland, where I'm from. And it was on this holiday, and you can see there, like I certainly didn't avoid any of the deep-fried Mars bars on that trip either. But it was here that everything kind of changed for me. And it was like a moment where something happened. And I don't know, maybe it's because there I am standing in front of my childhood home with my family and my children. But something happened that day, and I came to this realization. And I think some of you will have had this realization already. And the realization is that we live two lives. Your first life is when you're young and you're carefree and you're just focused on living. And death isn't even a thing. You don't consider death. It's not a concept you think about. Until one day. And one day, for me, on this trip in December of 2017, I woke up and I realized that I'm dying, right? I understood that I'm on the other side. And I started thinking about my life decisions and started thinking that I'm now in a second part of my life. A life in which I realize that I am immortal, like this is going to end. And I think some of you here possibly will resonate with this, that you find yourself in that second life as well. You go to bed at night, you put your head on the pillow, and you start thinking about, what did I achieve today? Am I actually doing something? And this happens because people go on these quests. They start climbing mountains in their 50s and doing things they never would have done because they realize I'm running out of time. And that was a big deal for me, and that happened for me there. And I realized that I no longer wanted to be the guy that was living just to die, right? I didn't want to be happy being the person that was living to die. I wanted to be dying to be living happy. I wanted to change things around. Now, why am I telling you this? Because if this was just a story that mattered to me, it wouldn't be important. But it's not. This is a story about you. It's a story about all of you here. Right? Because each and every one of you are living in this story in which maybe you've let yourself down. You're living a story in which maybe some of the habits that you hoped you would have, you've lost. You're living in a story in which certain things that could have made you happy have failed to see fruition. And you're living in a story in which maybe the war on willpower has been lost and you're finding yourself not as happy as you could be. And I think you deserve better than that. And I felt I deserved better than that. Now, speaking of happiness, in a video I created recently on my YouTube channel, you're welcome to subscribe. My YouTube channel, if ever you need a private moment just to be alone, go to my YouTube channel. There's nobody else there. It's basically just me and videos like, hey guys, pick me, watch me. But I did a video recently on why I'm always so happy, because I do think that I'm a pretty happy guy. And I realized something. I'm happy because I have understood this concept of recreational obsession. I'm happy because I realize that the best part of my day happens when my work stops. And I speak to people all the time, successful entrepreneurs. And these entrepreneurs, they'll say, you know, at the end of my day, I'm so tired, I just want to get home and switch off. But I don't want to switch off when I get home. When I get home, I want to switch on. I want to become alive. I don't want to Netflix and chill. I want to do meaningful things. I want to use the best part of my brain for the best part of my day. And I believe where that happens is in these recreational obsessions, more commonly referred to as hobbies. I have my hobbies. I have various ones. I want to ride my electric skateboards. I want to go riding my motorcycles. And most importantly, for me, I want to play board games. I want to go out and play games, and I think that I deserve them. But I think you do too. You see, I think we've got to find that joy again in our life that we had as teenagers. We've got to find that thing that we were willing to do when we were younger that made us so happy back then, and we've got to reintroduce it into our lives. I think we've got to find those things that maybe we decided that we don't have time for today, because everybody doesn't have time for things. But of course we do. We just don't make time for things. And I think we've got to start making times for better things. I think the best part of your day should absolutely be the end of it. And I believe that you deserve this joy, and you deserve it right now. And as this kind of side note to this talk, I want to implore you to reignite some of the passions of the hobbies you had when you were younger, to find other things to engage with that will bring you alive. Now, the reason I'm telling you this from my side, though, it was within this hobby that I found my way again. It was in this hobby, combined with this idea of being in my second life, that I realized that, hey, I think I've codified what I have to do to get out of this slump. So, the hobby I'm talking to in this case was my board game collection, my board gaming in general. So these are my board games. It's pretty nerdy, I know, to have a collection like that. I didn't arrange them like that. My wife said, if you want those stupid games in our house, I'm making them look pretty. It makes it a nightmare to find anything, but, you know, they're in a nice, pretty order. And I must say, I do agree with her, it looks better. Now, what I realized in these games is when I'm playing them, it doesn't matter how complicated they are. If it was a simple game like Onitama or a complicated game like Twilight Struggle, I realized that the way I would teach it to each and every one of you, and by the way, if ever I catch you alone for more than 30 minutes, I will force you to play a board game with me. But the way I would teach you to play this game is very, very simple. I start with explaining to you how to win. I explain to you the victory condition. Once you understand the victory condition, then you basically are able to figure out the rest of the rules as you go along. And I realized that I had figured out what my victory condition was. I knew that I had to get healthier. That was my start. In 2018, if I wanted to do the things I wanted to do, I've got a list of 100 things I want to achieve in my life. I've marked off about 23 of them so far. One of them I didn't think I'd get to was don't get on a plane for 90 days. Thanks, COVID. But I've got this list of things that I'm working through, and I knew that in order to do many of those things, I had to be healthy. So I decided on New Year's Day that I wanted to basically re-engage and to create a victory condition around health. That's where I set out to do. But I didn't want to bother doing with a New Year's resolution because I already had about 40 years of experience up to that point of failing at pretty much every single New Year's resolution I set out to make. So I thought, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. Luckily, I have this kind of life philosophy, and my life philosophy is very simple. Failure is an attribute that is only awarded at death. Right? Like, oh, you're a failure. I'm not sure. I'll let you know when I'm dead. I'm also an atheist, so I don't give a shit, right? Like, when I'm dead, hairy bag of meat, I am done. So I'm okay being a failure after that happens. But up until then, no, that's not a thing I worry about. And I realize that's the same with kind of New Year's resolutions. Because your New Year's resolution is only payable on the 31st of December. You only decide if you failed to do what you set out to do in that year at the end of the year. So I realized, hey, I've got a whole year to do this thing. Now, I also know that on a games night, I would rather play 10 small games like Onitama than 2 big games like Twilight Struggle. So I realized that I enjoy many, many finite games. I want to play lots of games, 365 little games. So that's what I set out to do. And that's what I want to share with you in this talk, how I did this. But before I do that, I want to talk about this self-sabotaging asshole that is your brain. Because we set out with these great intentions, but unfortunately, inside our brain is an asshole boss, right? And it has different opinions on how we should be behaving. And we want to do one thing, but the asshole boss says we're doing something else, and that generally is what we end up doing. And I think we've got to figure out how to take control of this asshole boss and become the boss ourselves. Now, in order to do this, I'm going to share with you ideas from people much smarter than I am. I'm going to start with a guy called Jonathan Haidt, and he wrote a book that I'm actually reading at the moment called The Happiness Hypothesis. This is part of my early morning reading. If you haven't read it, that's a recommendation. Really enjoying it. Now, in this book, at the very beginning, and you can see from the picture in the book, he talks about this idea, and he wants to explain your brain to you. And he explains the brain in this way. He says your brain is like a rider on the back of an elephant. And the rider is your logical, intelligent brain. Your rider gets to control the elephant and tell it everything it's doing. Unfortunately, the elephant is your emotional brain. And it's fine listening to the rider until emotionally it decides that it wants to be doing something else, and in which case, the brain, its job is fundamentally changed. Then what your brain becomes, your rider becomes, is the lawyer, defending the choices that the elephant just made. I can see you're skeptical. If you don't believe me, the last thing you bought online that you totally felt you needed. For me, there's a stupid advert came up on Instagram for a thing called a One Piece, which is a onesie. I'm all for onesies, but this onesie was like the safari suit of onesies. It had shorts. Oh, I spat. At the front, they were like, oh, shit, die. It's okay. I'll step back and I won't get you so much in the next time. But I think I'm okay. So it has shorts and T-shirt arms. I bought this thing. I don't know if my wife is watching. I am sorry for how much I paid for this thing. It was in euros in my defense, and I didn't really think it through. And then I paid about $3,000 shipping, and then I paid import duties. And then it arrived, and I'm like, I can't wear this thing, it's so cold. Like, I'm sorry, love, I'm sorry. It's so cold. I put this thing on exactly once. But my rider justified my decision that it was on a summer sale, and that I really, really would use it a lot in our summer, so I was convinced it was a good decision. But I think there's a problem with this metaphor, and the problem is that I keep on seeing myself as a smart guy. I keep on seeing myself as the rider. I'm on the back of the elephant, and it's not me, it's the elephant. It's choosing where it wants to go. But that kind of lets me off the hook, and I don't think it should. So we've changed that narrative slightly in my head, and now what I do is I don't see it as a rider like me, I see it as a robot, like C-3PO on the back of Dumbo. And in my brain is C-3PO logically doing his best to tell us which way to go, and Dumbo just wants to take off and fly. And this lets me understand the stupid decisions I make in my life, which I make a lot of. Now, understanding that, I thought, well, how can I possibly control my elephant? What tools does C-3PO have to help with Dumbo? And I looked around and I only found one tool. And that tool, the carrot and the stick that he can wave ahead of Dumbo, is my willpower, which unfortunately is a diminishing resource. Right, so unfortunately, your willpower isn't as good at doing its job as you would think, because we were given it, we just weren't given a lot. In a study done years ago by Robert Baumeister, he brought in 67 students into a room. Similar to this, you guys here, brought you all in here, it was lovely. And he said to you, and as you walked in, you had this beautiful smell, a scent. And it was the scent of chocolate chip cookies. Just sitting there going, oh, they'd just been baked. Can you smell it? And everybody sat down there and they looked at these chocolate chip cookies, but they saw this bowl of radishes. And they were like, I don't know what's going on here. And what they said is, we need you guys to taste things. And everyone's like, I'm fine so far. I know what I'm going for. We want you to eat and tell us about the flavor profiles of what you're tasting. What does it feel like in your mouth? Crunch it to do it. And you're like, okay, well, I'll have one radish and I'll have, more cookies. And that was what they set out to do. And he said, unfortunately, this side of the room, I'm afraid you're not allowed any radishes. Right? You cannot have the radish. You're only allowed to eat the delicious, beautiful smelling chocolate chip cookies. You guys, sauce. You're not allowed any of the cookies, okay? You just gotta eat the radishes. You gotta sit there, radish, bite it, chew it, taste it, and you gotta write down the sensations you feel. So they did this for a while. And then what happened is at the end of it, they ended up finishing a little bit quicker than they expected. So the testers stood up and said, guys, listen, I know you've been paid to be here for a full hour, and we've only been about 30 minutes. If you would like to, we'll pay you double. One of our other research teams is doing a different social science experiment. And if any of you would like to, you can go through there, spend the half hour, and we'll pay you double. Of course, everyone's like, cool, sweet, I'm in, right? So you had the two groups. You had, of course, the cookie group, and you had the radish group, and off they decided to go next door. When they went next door, what they were given is they were given a test like this. And they were told that what they had to do is they had to draw, you know those tests where you have to draw the lines and you're not allowed to cross the lines and things like this? And they were given piles of paper. And they said, it's okay. You've got to just carry on doing this one attempt per page until you solve it. And if you can't solve it, it's okay. Just quit when you're done. Like if you get bored of it and you're over it, you can just stop and you can leave. Just bring us all the paper samples so we can see the methods you did. And so they sat down. And the results were interesting, as I'm sure you can imagine. You see, what happened there is that the group that had the chocolate chip cookies, they performed twice as well, twice as long than the radish group. Now, the caveat here, the interesting thing about the experiment is that there was no right answer. This was purely a test of willpower. It was simply to see how many attempts would you make. And the radish group made half as much. So what does this tell us? Well, it tells us two things. It tells us that our willpower has to apply to many different things at many different times. It's not like we have a willpower for chocolate chip cookies and a different willpower for tests and mathematics. It's that we have one pool of willpower. And if we use it all early in the day on one task, there isn't enough left later when dessert comes. And that's problematic. And the second thing we realize is that that tank, is finite. So essentially, for our analogy, what we're doing is we're giving a very, very small carrot to a very, very big elephant. And this is a problem. But I think we have to try to beat this and figure this out. And that's what I hope to help you with today. But first, in order to do that, I want to go to war with an idea that is being so glorified the world over, and I think it's got to stop. And that is habits. Screw them. Like, I really do believe habits are a terrible idea. We talk about you want to be healthier. Just have healthy habits. Thanks, Captain Obvious. Just need habits. Oh, shit. Okay. Thank you. Okay, brilliant. Habits are not easy. We've been lied to. We were told it takes 21 days to create a habit. But they've now done all of these tests like sciencey people do, and they know it can go up to like 250 days, but on average, it takes 66 days to create a habit. Basically like the devil's number, right? Like 66 days, like we're close to the devil's number to do this. Now we do have some habits. I'll tell you some of the habits I have. Wiping my ass, thankfully, is a habit, right? That's a habit. Covering my nose when we sneeze, now, almost, habit. Putting on a seatbelt when you get in a car, habit. And for younger generations, not something you have never had to think about ever. But my parents, it took the inclusion of an alarm system being put in there, irritatingly beeping, until my dad was like, oh, this is some bullshit, plugging that thing in. Right? Habits are hard. They're not easy. It's not a thing we can do. So I think we can do, guys, can I ask you one wee favor? I think this is one ahead of that one, just for what it's worth, extra. So habits are hard. And I do think they're very, very hard. But I think if we can figure out, right, because I know it, because I cannot stop putting this stupid toilet seat down. And my wife always argues with me. And frankly, I think she's being a bit lazy because gravity is on her side, okay? It's not an effort for her. down, and it's up. And it's also, by the way, how I know that toilets were invented by men, because if they were invented by women, they would have one of those fridge door, seatbelt, alarm systems on them if you leave it up. As far as I'm concerned, until you guys figure out to put the alarm on, gravity, bitch. Too much? I don't know. The world. Oh, I'm canceled. Sorry. I'll leave now. Anyway, so I think what we had to do is we got to figure out. What I realize is habits are not the victory, or they're not the path to victory. They're the victory condition itself. Once something is a habit, you've won. Doing habits isn't the easy bit. Doing habits is the win. So it's not enough to focus on how do I do a habit. We've got to actually get into the God particle that makes that up. And I think that's what I figured out, right? I don't believe that habits are the path to victory. I believe that they're the victory condition themselves. That's where we got to get to, is by realizing that, then we got to figure out what the God particle is. So what is the God particle of a habit? Luckily, I think I figured out that son of a bitch. And I'm going to share with you right now. Now, to do that, I want to ask you what these three people have in common. Jerry Seinfeld, Seth Godin, and Mike Winkelmann. Anybody? I'll tell you what these three have in common. One word: consistency. Right? Winkelmann, John mentioned him earlier, also known this guy. Does everybody know who he is? His name, better known in today's world as Beeple. Beeple is a far cooler name for a dude who just made $67 million selling this thing here. Now, this is his painting called Every Days, My First 5,000 Days. Note, he's letting you know that there's a sequel, so start saving. Right? For 5,000 days, he made a digital bit of art every single day. It went under the hammer at Christie's, and he sold that for $67 million. Is that right? Seth Godin, since 2002, has decided to write a blog post every single day, without fail. With his work days, he's written a blog post every single day. And this is the reason why he's considered to be one of the world's top thinkers. And then there's Jerry Seinfeld. When Jerry Seinfeld was asked recently what it is, his secret to his comedic success, he says it's relatively easy. All I do is I take a red marker, and every single day, when I read the joke for the day, when I write a new joke for the day, I go to the calendar and I mark off a big red cross. He said the success is not writing the joke, it's something else. What he sees as successful, and I think will be echoed by the likes of Seth Godin and Winkelmann, Beeple, is very, very simply this. He said success comes from not breaking the chain. Just don't break the chain. As long as you don't break the chain, you're in good shape. So what we now have is another tool. We have a chain that we can attach to the elephant that can help the robot control it. Unfortunately, as a vegan, didn't take me long to work that in. I can't go out there chaining elephants. So we have to rebrand the chain. And the way I want to rebrand the chain is this. I think what we need to do is create streaks. Now, Streaks, interestingly, is the name of the book that I'm busy writing right now. Not the book that I'm trying to sell you on. That is the book I just finished 3 weeks ago called Here Be Dragons, out in November. You're welcome to do it if you want to know about it. Sign up to my mailing list. Link will be forthcoming. While you're there, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Don't know why I did that. No idea. Back to Streaks, that will be coming out next year. You can buy that too, but I digress. I'm getting all distracted. Where was I? The elephant? Sorry. Back to me. So let's talk about streaks for a second here. I think streaks make things easy. Because you see, when you go on a streak, it's simply about building momentum. It's about finding momentum in your life of different things you want to do. And this is very different from habits. Because habits are hard to start, but easy to stop. Streaks are actually easy to start and hard to stop. And I'm going to explain to you why that is. And the other thing about streaks is interesting is it takes you 66 days to start a habit. How many days does it take you to start a streak? 1 or 2? Because the second day you've done something, but actually you're right, 1 day. The first day you do something, well, that's your first time. Then the second time, you're on a streak. And I try to bring streaks into my life every single day. On the 4th of January, I decided I want to do 21 pull-ups every day for 2021. I started 4 days late. As of this morning, I think I'm on I don't know what you two did there. Let's pretend it started tomorrow because I'm going to ask you to do that later. We'll just lie about yesterday or practice. Okay, good. So I would put up challenge 21 push-ups every single day for the year. As of this morning, I think it was on 227 or something days. And here's the interesting thing. Tomorrow, it will be harder for me not to do 21 pull-ups than it would be for me to not to do them mentally. Because now, these 227 days have weight. They have gravitas. So I wanted to try different things and measure different streaks. I have a number of different ones going on. So every single work day, I walk 3 kilometers per day. I'm on day number 87 of that. I do 50 squats during my work day. So that's after training. I do 50 squats during my work day. I'm on 64 days with that. Reading a refined article. Every day I get a mail, and I'll share the link with you. It gives me 5 articles. I read at least one a day every morning before I start work. I'm on 65 days. My Kindle reading streak. Now, that's interesting. I'm on day 246 reading every day, but I'm on week 163. Kindle's genius because they give you a chance to fail, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then I review 5 of those Kindle highlights every single day, because we all make highlights in our Kindle, but we never visit them again. Using an app called Readwise, which I'll share the link with you, I review 5 of those every single day, and I'm on day 164. However, some of these lesser days, I actually think that the failure was not to do the work. The failure was to forget to log it in the app that I use to do it. And in order to maintain the streak, I want to share with you 4 ideas today. 4 very, very simple ideas: repetition, conservation, reparation, and absolution. And I want to share these ideas with you because I think they will help you maintain streaks in your life. And that is what my hope is that you start to do. So let's talk about the first one here, repetition. I think repetition is important. We love repetition in our life. Right? We love to have things. We want things to be musical. There was a lady called, when I was running the other day, I came out to Joburg 2 weeks ago, and I had a choice because I was in here all day with Mark over there. We were letting cars fly over us. It was a pretty cool day. And I had a choice that I could either break the streak of my running and start over again. I could get up at 3 a.m. and actually do my 3-kilometer run then, or I could actually just put it off on Saturday and let myself off the hook. And you see, what I'd done, because in the repetition, it's important that we have a cadence. And what I realized, I'd originally thought to set my cadence at 5 working days. But I realized my cadence was actually different. I zoomed out a little bit, and I realized, no, I just have to do 5 out of 7 days per week. And that let myself off the hook. And I believe that what we've got to do is try and create rhythm in our life, the right rhythms for these streaks that we want to do. What is the right rep count that we want to do to make them happen? Now, this lady here, her name is Diana Deutsch. She's an amazing thinker in terms of music and rhythm. And in her book, Musical Illusions and Paradoxes, she discovered something by accident. She discovered that when human beings hear a phrase that goes over and over again, hear a phrase that goes over and over again, hear a phrase that goes over and over again, hear a phrase that goes over and over again, hear a phrase that goes over and over again, it starts to sound like a song. It starts to sound like a song. It starts to sound like a song. And she realized that human beings want to find pattern and rhythm in everything. And it happens over and over again. If you want to see more about that, I highly recommend you check out Derek Thingamabob's, that's not going to help you, Derek Thompson's talk at Google on his book, Hitmakers. Brilliant talk, where he talks about this in detail. But I realized I just got to figure out what the rhythm is. And I realized that my life is a soundtrack. In the movie of my life, I get to be the composer. I get to create the beats, and the streaks are the beats. And I get to perform at them over and over again, all the time, any way that I want to, because it's my movie. The only change to this is when it's somebody else's tune. So if I'm doing Readwise and I break their streak, well, then that's their rules and that's okay. I learned about a company the other day called Streak Runners International. They have their rules, and if you want to join their community, well, then you got to follow by their rules. And if you break them, well, then that's something different. And this brings me then to the next part, which is conservation. How do we conserve it? Now, at Streak Runners International, they said that they've got 5,700 members, and their rule is very simple. You have to run 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers every calendar day. That's the rule. That's the way we're going to do it. So I've heard about this because this friend of mine had posted that she'd done 500 days in a row. So I went onto the group to see, wow, that's a pretty long streak to run 1 mile every single day. And then I discovered this guy here, the record holder. His name is John Sutherland. He has run 1 mile a day for 19,078 days. That's 1 mile a day for 52 years. He has been running for every single day for 2 months longer than my parents have been married. My dad still thinks that John got off easy, right? So here's the thing, though. How hard would it be for him not to run tomorrow? What are the chances of it? It's almost zero. So I went onto their Facebook group and I asked them, hey guys, what have you ever done to maintain your streaks? And I got some cool answers. I want to share with you a few of them. I was admitted to hospital for 3 days. Luckily, I brought my running gear. I rode 0.8 miles around my bed until the nurse came in. I tried to explain. I said I can explain and finish my mile. This one, I gave birth to our 5th baby at home. A little while later, got up and ran a mile on my treadmill while my midwife and husband watched. This one, I discovered while traveling I forgot my running shoes, so I ran 2 miles in dress heels. I don't know why she didn't run barefoot. I don't think they have a shoe thing, but you ladies, okay. The next day, someone gave me flip-flops, so I ran in those much easier. Ran at 11 p.m. after 2 bottles of wine. It wasn't pretty. And then this one, I ran with a broken tailbone. I had to hold on to my butt, literally. I don't want to know what happened that he had to hold on to the butt. But here's the reason they had to do it. They had to do it because this streak had value for them and they didn't want to lose it. Loss aversion is a very real thing for humans. In a study done recently, they asked a bunch of workers, they said, I'll give you $12 if you maintain productivity till the end of the week. But then he went to a second group and he said, I'll give you $12 today, it's yours, you can pick it up at the end of the week, but you can only pick it up at the end of the week if you lose your productivity, you'll lose it. So it's already yours, but you'll lose it. Which group was more productive? The second group, because they didn't want to lose it, because they owned the money now. They were only going to collect it later on. Well, you own your streak. And this has been a superpower that I've had in my life. The next thing, and we're getting nearly there now, is that we have to get reparation. We have to be able to repair our streaks. Recently, when my Readwise streak broke, I was on 164 days. Well, now I'm on 164 days. I was in about 50. I logged in the morning and again the following night. They wanted me to have a 24-hour period within a 24-hour window, so they reset my streak back to 0. They said I'd skip the day. And the weird thing that happened was then I just quit. And I was like, okay, well, I didn't bother reading again the next day because I'd lost out again. Luckily, a few months later, they realized, well, they could fix this, and they came back in with a way that you can log back in and repair yourself later on, and you can begin again. And luckily for me, I realized that I wasn't doing the streaks for the sake of the streak itself. I was doing it to become better. So I did start again. I decided that was the thing. And I realized then that it's critical that I zoom out slightly and look at why I'm doing these things. Other organizations, Amazon, I've already mentioned them, weekly and daily. If you break it, you get it back. Snapchat, they send you a notification every single day. Hey, you run at risk of losing your streak. Don't do it. Kids jump onto their phones and they maintain it. And Duolingo, if you break your streak, you can pay cash money to get it back. They don't care. They just know it means something to you. So you'll spend $1 with them and say, okay, can I have my streak back? And like, sure you can. And you might say that this isn't a thing. I personally prefer the Readwise's approach because Readwise says if you do read and catch up on your reading within a 5-day period, you'll get your streak back. But I really applaud Duolingo as well because all they realize is that the streak is in service of the victory condition. I want to apply this to my own business. I want to get my sales team. I realize that in sales, you measure what you sow, not what you reap. So I want to say to them, cool, I'm going to build streaks. So for every single day, when you go out there and you send 5 emails. And if I can get them to send 5 emails a day and reward the streaks and keep those streaks from growing, I actually don't need to measure and monitor how many sales they make. I know those sales will happen. Right? Streaks can be powerful in all aspects of your business. If they fail, that's okay, provided we're willing to forgive them. And that's where the absolution comes in. So you need to realize this, as far as I'm concerned, is you are streaking to win. You are winning because you streak. You're not streaking to win. You're winning because you're on a streak. And if we realize that, we're in good shape. And this brings me back to January of 2018. January 2018, I realized that I just had to create a streak. My goal, I wanted to set up for myself a victory condition, and the victory condition was to be healthier than I've ever been before. That year, I managed to lose more than 20 kilograms. I was in great shape. I felt great. And the way that I want to share with you this codification of it is very, very simple. Step number 1 today is I want you to define your victory condition. what will make it successful? As I said, for me, it was this: go out there running. Thereafter, all I want you to do is to go out there and every single day set one new day's resolution. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be the same thing consistently. It doesn't have to be a pull-up challenge every single day. It's just any one single thing that will get you to be healthier. And then each day, if you make it, you go back there and you log yourself with a win. And my rules are very, very simple for myself. If at the end of the week, right, when I get that win, I get my dopamine hit. If at the end of the week that I have 5 wins in a week, well, then that's great. Then my week is a victory. If I get 3 wins in a month, 3 weeks wins in a month, then my month is a victory. And if I get 11 wins in a year, then my year has been a victory. I have missed many, many days, a handful of weeks, 1 month, and no years since I started doing this thing. And that's why in closing, I want to challenge you to a very, very simple thing. The Suits and Streakers 66. The Suits and Streakers 66 is simply this: I don't care if you maintain a streak. I only ask you to set a new day's resolution for yourself every single day for the next 66 days. Every single day for the next 66 days, when you wake up in the morning, you're going to set a goal for yourself. It's irrelevant for me how many of those you get, although you're welcome to follow the same thing. But I believe if we can just start the habit of creating the first streak, we can go ahead and find a way to hack our brains, to feed that elephant, and to, for once and for all, win the war on willpower that each of us deserve to do. On this URL here, I've shared some videos for you, some resources and some apps that you can do to do it. And I've shared some of the sample New Day resolutions that I follow every single day. So ladies and gentlemen, I know I've overstayed my welcome, but I'm having a great time being up here with you, and I'm sucking in every single minute of it that I can get. I thank you very, very much for your attention, and I leave you with 2 words to walk away and to take away with you today. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is to go out there and to start streaking. Thank you very, very much.